This is not a prop from the original Planet of the Apes movie. It's something else, interesting and kind of sad at the same time. So enjoy the shooting. Alright guys, welcome back. If you don't mind, if you want to go up there and like and subscribe, really could use the help. Trying to get up there and get to 1,000 views this year. Slowly growing, but we're getting there. Anyway, so this is not a prop from the original Planet of the Apes movie. It is something that's both tragic and cool at the same time, and kind of a mystery to me. This is actually a sporterized M1 Carbine, but this isn't your normal Bubba M1 Carbine. If you look, this gun was beautifully done. The sight post was professionally machined off, given a nice good dark blue. This interesting stock has a beautiful lacquer finish on it, had a cap on it, had the front sight post professionally removed, and had a sight for a scout style long eye relief scope put on it, which is interesting because depending on when this was put together, which I can't confirm, this predates the common idea of what the scout rifle is. But I'll talk about that a little bit more. So anyways, this is an inland M1 Carbine. It is an original military surplus before it got... I reluctantly used the term Bubba on this rifle because it's not truly Bubba, and I'll explain why in a second. But before this rifle was sporterized, it was a military surplus rifle. Now, there's no telling when this rifle was actually sporterized. However, it was likely sometimes in the 60s or 70s. So basically, at the end of World War II and in the 60s, surplus rifles started becoming kind of a big thing in the U.S., more than they had been previously. And thanks to NRA Marksman program, they were becoming more readily available to the U.S. public. Well, back then, it wasn't considered as taboo to sporterize a military surplus rifle as it is now. In fact, back then, it was the cool thing to do. You were able to find, old Mausers and Krags and Enfields and even stuff from the Civil War and stuff that had been put in sporterized stocks, modern sporting stocks, for hunting purposes. Now, today, we generally don't like doing that with military surplus because, well, the historical value. Especially if you're a collector like me, I don't particularly like sporterizing rifles, especially not something with a thumb hole stock. But this rifle is a little different than that. Besides coming from an era in which it was the in thing to do to sporterize a rifle, this one here actually has a bit of history behind it, or at least the stock itself. So, in the 60s, Williams Gun Sight Company, yes, the Williams Gun Sight Company, famous for their peep sight, like in my Mauser. Look here. Same Williams gun sight company. And I'm dropping stuff. They actually had a few publications around this time in which were instructions on how to sporterize military surplus rifles that were coming into the market. Well, along with this publication, they did a special run of M1 carbines that were sporterized in practically this exact same configuration in the same stock, and that run was called the 1 of 50 series. Well, as the name implies, only 50 were made, and every one that you got was one of those 50 rifles. Now, I can't particularly find any evidence that this one is an original 1 for 50, because I'll post up on the screen here in a second. The original 1 for 50s did have markings on the receiver or on the barrel that they were part of that series. And as you can see on this one, on the receiver, it is a US-owned carbine. So this was military surplus, as were the 1 of 50 guns. And back then, the manufacturer of the guns didn't really matter so much, as really military surplus guns weren't considered collectible just yet. Now, of course, there are always the following of the soldiers that used these guns in war that really loved them. They were a lot of the ones that were buying these guns because they were familiar with the system, they were familiar with the cartridge, and they were using them. You see a lot of this, particularly with soldiers coming back from World War II, gravitating towards the 30-06 cartridge for hunting, which prior to that wasn't really a well-used cartridge just yet in the hunting world. So, you know, they gravitated towards the 30-06, and then when the M1 carbines and the 30 carbines started becoming on the market, they gravitated towards those and got those rifles. And I don't know exactly what those were going for back then, but man, it would have been a great time because I guarantee you they were dirt cheap at the time. Anyways, so with the 1 of 50 series, it got this custom thumbhold stock, which I'm not gonna lie, this thing actually feels really good in the hands. It feels right. It looks wrong, but feels right. So anyways, the 1 of 50 series had this stock. Not all of them had the Sporter, the Scout scope on it. That's why I believe this might possibly be a later addition, as a lot of the 1 of 50s still had the iron sights on it. And actually the barrel was slightly longer on the 1 of 50s. So it's likely this one here was produced by someone else on a surplus stock from that series. If you look, it even has this, I can't show you really, but I'll post up on the pictures of all the markings on the stock. It only has really one on the butt plate. I don't know how many of these stocks were made separately outside of this series, but obviously some of them were out and about. So back then you can get a couple different versions of this rifle in its different sporting configurations. Some of them were directly from Williams gun sights, some of them were not. The Williams gun sight ones, generally they had a Williams sight on the back of it, but it wasn't exactly with this. And so I'm assuming that this one here was probably built after that run with a surplus stock. I don't know if these stocks were commercially available at the same time, but I do know for sure this is the stock that was used on the 1 of 50 series. And the 1 of 50 series would have been marked right here on this kind of, I'm not sure what this is. It's not a barrel band, but on this retainer for the grip. So my guess is somebody after the fact in the later 60s or 70s had an extra one of these stocks, got a cheap M1, and did a really nice job, you know, getting it done. It's very well possible this might be from Williams, and it just was one that was never sold. Who knows? It's impossible to know because there's no markings on it. And I have contacted Williams before to try to get some information from them, see if there were any kind of serial numbers associated with the 1 of 50. Any manufacturers they particularly had. If they had any records of prototypes that were pre-production that they didn't set out, any with scout scopes, any of that type situation. And I got no response from them. The reason why I'm thinking this is probably a little later is because of the scout scope setup. This scope on here is a old Weaver, or no, it's a Leopold actually. It's an older Leopold. It's not super old, so there's no telling exactly when this was set up. Now this gun was a hand-me-down. It was technically it's my wife's gun from her father, and it was one of the ones in his safe that just kind of caught my eye, and I'm like, you know, I really want to look into this rifle because it is so funky looking. When I got it, it came with this plastic, I guess it's a 10-round magazine, but when I was in the Army surplus store, I did find a couple surplus 30-rounders, which you saw in the video. I was actually shooting out this one, which ran flawlessly, and I am using 30 point soft point 30 carbine, which I want to take a pig with this gun, as with all my guns. But this one is fun to shoot. 30 carbine is real similar to 44 mag as far as ballistics go. Obviously, it's a smaller diameter, but it is, you know, getting a little bit of boogie out of there for a straight wall cartridge. I'm kind of curious to see how it compares ballistically to, say, 350 Legend. I'm not 100% sure how that is, but I imagine they're probably fairly close. I'll have to do a little bit of research and see how they actually compare. Anyway, so let's go over the gun itself. So one thing that was a major problem with the 30 carbine is the safety. So the safety is what you think of a typical crossbar safety, you know, but the mag release is right here on the side. It's a button as well. So if it even happened to me once in while filming or shooting this. You can go to remove the safety and accidentally hit your mag release. And if you have a full 30 rounder in it, you have a good chance of your mag falling out. The mags, let's see if I can do this here. Just kind of go straight in, and if you got a full one, it's got just enough weight it could wiggle out. Especially if you accidentally hit it without noticing, and you have one in the chamber and you fire, that jolt could definitely knock it out. As far as, you know, the operation go, your basic M1 Carbine, it does, it's kind of weird doing it left-handed with my pinky, just that regular satisfying sound. It does have the 2-lug rotating bolt. And, I mean, what can I say as far as the M1 Carbine? It's an M1 Carbine. Like I said, what's really special about this gun is the stock and kind of history behind the stock. You see it has had a stock repair at one point. And the bluing, it's hard to come over on camera, but it was done very nice. It is a very nicely clean gun. My wife doesn't know anything about it. She doesn't know, she's pretty sure it was purchased as is like this by her father, so not a whole lot to say on that. Something really interesting and unique, and I really want to get some more shooting up, but right now 30 carbine's a little hard to find in my area, and man, I am so reluctant to buy ammo online simply because of the shipping costs. You know, buying a box of 454 is fine and all, but then you pay as much for the shipping as the ammo itself. So, you know, it is a little bit of a turn off to, you know, order ammo online. You just see this. And it's just a basic 2-power scope. No, Leopold. Something, I have no interest in actually swapping out this scope on this rifle, just because the old fixed 2-power Leopold kind of matches the rifle. You know, it just kind of feels right. It's kind of hard to explain, but you know, when you look at this thing, you think, oh, it's got a thumb hole. This thing probably feels funky. It doesn't have much of a cheek rest on it, but with the low bore axis of this scope on it, it feels pretty good. It does give you some good follow-up shots on it. So I would like to. I would actually be interested in taking this gun into a shooting competition and get looked at with disdain for its appearance. But I think it would actually do pretty good in shooting competition because you got that quick acquisition of the Scout Scope on it. The thing is super light. It's super short and handy. You can bring it around. There's not much weight up here in the front, to be honest, especially in this configuration. I don't know what type of wood this is, but it's light. I can tell you maybe 7 pounds, you know, max 6 maybe. Not heavy at all. Just a great fun little shooter, and I'm probably almost as excited to try to take this thing hunting and take a pig with it, or even I might try to take a deer with it this upcoming season, as I am for my C308 or my 454 or another one that's going to be on the channel here soon. Wink, wink, hint, hint. But anyways, so this is the M1 Carbine in the 1 of 50 stock. If any of you guys who are big M1 guys happen to know any way I can try to track this stock and find out maybe where this build came from, please let me know. I can't find much information on it, and in fact, you know, besides that Williams gun sight article that I found that I'll link in the description, I couldn't find much information on this rifle at all, outside of, you know, the basic markings for, you know, the original military markings. Anyways, I'll see y'all guys next time when we do something else a little weird and kind of rare, but kind of fun. It's interesting. Another one that also feels surprisingly good in the hands, despite it being a little off looking. So I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Be sure to come over here and subscribe. And of course you have to hit the little bell, otherwise we won't show up in your notifications each time we post a new video. And check us out on Facebook and give us a like. We post all of our content there as well, as long as some pictures that we take. Speaking of Instagram, you can check us out on Instagram too. We post all of our pictures, some short clips that don't end up on YouTube, along with a little bit of funny stuff, some game recipes, and we're also on Twitter. You can check us out on there, some of our posts. We keep everyone kind of in the queue along what we're on to and what we're up to and what we're doing, along with some other posts about some other things that we like. So be sure to check us out on Patreon. We could always use the support. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up, but that stuff kind of isn't cheap, so every little bit of support helps and will help us get out some good content for everyone to see.